Hey guys, welcome to the Light Muse podcast. We're your hosts, Flannery Underwood
and Jessica Cabesi.
So today we're going to be talking about TikTok photography and photo shoot crashing and photographer etiquette. So let's get into it. Okay, Jess, what do we have today?
So I really wanted to talk about this situation. It was brought up in the photography community. You know, we have some controversy sometimes. I wouldn't say it's like a huge controversy, but people were talking about it. Some people were really upset by it. And I think I showed you it.
Yeah, so I'm going to watch it and I'll describe to you what is going on here.
Okay.
So here we go. Okay, so there is a wedding couple, a bride and a groom, and they're out, it looks like in San Francisco. They're walking in like a public courtyard, and there is this photographer that runs up to them, and he is obviously being filmed by his assistant or second shooter, and he approaches them, he shows them his phone, and there's text on screen that says, I make these videos on TikTok. He's like explaining what he does. He finds strangers, he takes photos for them and sends them off. And then right next to this couple is the wedding photographer who's standing right next to both of them. And he's just kind of like looking up at the TikTok guy.
Oh gosh.
Kind of being like, what are you doing? And he's still explaining. And the photographer asked the TikTok photographer, how much time do you need?
Oh, really?
And he responds, he says no more than 5 minutes.
Oh, I don't even remember the
and
photographer.
And then the wedding photographer goes, make it 5. And the guy goes, 5? Okay.
Wait, so he said, what, 10 minutes first?
He said 5 minutes. And they're like, 5 minutes. Okay. So he like agreed to that. And then he's showing them, the video continues, he's showing the wedding couple and the wedding photographer his portfolio. And he's like, okay, 5 minutes, great. And then he proceeds to shoot with the couple. And there's text on screen that says, I only took 2.5 minutes of their time. And then there's this like very light, like piano music that's over the top of it as they fast forward through the shoot. And then it ends with the final edited images.
Okay.
And I see it has 5.3 million likes on it.
5.3 million. Wow.
Yeah.
So we do have to know this photographer has, I guess, 6.9 million followers on TikTok. And so I guess when he was showing the couple what was on his phone, maybe he was showing them his account just to show like, hey, I have a lot of followers. Like, we want to do something cool with you. This photo shoot should have never happened. It was the wedding photographer shoot. I don't know what type of photographer he is. I don't know if he is a wedding photographer, but it's as a wedding photographer, I've done so many weddings, and I would never advise anyone to do this, especially, you know, in the photography community. You just have to respect people's other photographers' shoots and other photographers' clients and the jobs that they get, and it's kind of like interrupting somebody's work and interrupting on their workspace. And I don't know if that was really a great idea.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And I think, you know, this question comes down to, is there such a thing as like photographer etiquette, right? You know, it's like when you have worked so hard to gain this client, and it's not just that you booked this client, it's the fact that there was so much time and energy and money spent on that bride's dress and makeup and hair and prepping, and maybe even getting a permit to shoot at a certain location. And that photographer has brought all his gear and has prepared so much for that moment, and for another photographer to kind of swoop in and take that. I mean, all that we own as photographers are creative ideas, right? And it's the work that we produce. And it just, I understand there is this side. I mean, even just like with some of your videos where, you know, you have shooting photos of strangers, which I think is like a really powerful concept. It's, you know, taking street photography to like a portrait style level. And I think that is really interesting, but it's another thing where you're taking another photographer's photo shoot and like
Exactly.
completely taking it over,
Exactly.
right?
And also think about the wedding photographer. This I don't want to this other photographer put him in a very uncomfortable, awkward situation, and he kind of overshadowed. This photographer probably felt like the original wedding photographer probably felt overshadowed by this, famous, popular TikTok star. And also, you have to understand the wedding clients handpick their photographer based on their style, based on the way that they edit the photos. So to have somebody who they're not even really familiar with that just comes up to them out of nowhere, you kind of feel put on the spot. Like you don't really know what they're going to do with the pictures. Like you haven't signed a contract with them on your very, very special day. So I mean, you can say like, oh yeah, of course they consented in the video, but again, when you're being put in a position like that out of nowhere, sometimes you're just like, okay, I mean, yeah, I mean, sometimes when you're in a
Totally.
pressure situation like that, you just kind of
Go with the flow.
just go with
Yeah.
the flow. Yeah.
Like, what would you have done if you were that wedding
Oh,
photographer?
I'd have been like, no, sorry,
No.
straight up. I'd
I
be
think
like,
I'm
no.
I'm like way too nice. I would have been like, "Oh my God, like can I hold your bounce? Like can I
Flannery would been like, I'll literally just hold all
I'm
your
like,
other
"Oh,
things.
let me like fan her hair for you." Like
Can I hold her
get some wind in
bouquet?
there.
Do you need one of my
No.
lenses?
Right? No, I think it is such an interesting question, and I think you're so right. It's like the circumstance of being put on the spot and sometimes not knowing like what's right or wrong, and it just feeling so impromptu. And maybe in the moment you kind of say yes, but afterwards you maybe wish you hadn't said that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like also as a photographer, like you have to stand up for yourself and stand
For
up for
sure.
like your creativity and like um wow, I just said creativity really weird there.
Love it. Man,
Creativity.
this video really brought out all of these emotions in us right now. We're like
I know.
pronunciating. Oh my God, we're pronouncing words.
Girl, we're not even speaking English right now.
Listen, let me tell you something. If this photographer had come up to me on one of my clients when I'm shooting their wedding, I would have been like, you're no, like, why would you even ask me
Yeah.
that? That's,
Yeah.
I'm embarrassed that you would ask me that. Why would you do that?
Yeah. Have you ever had an experience where someone has tried to take over your shoot intentionally or even unintentionally? Like you've shot a lot of weddings. Has that ever happened to you?
For weddings, sometimes we have guests who want to take pictures with their like $300 Rebel cameras, whatever it may be. And those are people who I think the bride and the groom are okay with taking pictures and they don't mind that. And I personally don't mind. The issue I have is when another professional, if they're being paid to play a certain role, if they're the videographer, let's say that they're like the DJ or something, I wouldn't expect those people to start taking pictures because I'm not doing
Mm-hmm.
your job. Please don't try to take over mine. So it's just kind of like, um, just do what you were what was agreed upon, and that's it. Don't do any more and don't do any less, and just respect other people's space in that event.
Another question like I have for you too is like what's like your opinion of TikTok photography? Because this TikTok has blown up. It's been around for a couple years, but only in I think the past year, year and a half has it really exploded in a way that it hadn't before. Like what do you think about photographers on TikTok?
It's definitely a different genre of photography. I feel like people on who are who really like TikTok like a certain type of photography. I even noticed, the photographer that we were just referencing earlier. Did you saw his pictures? I mean, I don't personally for me, I don't think from my experience as a wedding photographer, the clients wouldn't want pictures like that. I mean, they're very like they're super super colorful with like the color bubbles. I think you took them into Photoshop, set it to like screen, put like a bright pink bubble on there. Like I used to do that. I love that kind of stuff. Is it the style that they like, and are they going to be like blowing these pictures up and putting them in their house? We don't know that. But I honestly feel bad for the original photographer. I really do. Like, you can see, like, he even has like an arrow pointed towards him, like the wedding photographer. Like, that's the
Yeah,
first.
but he's kind of like, you know what I also think it is like that moment where the TikTok photography approaches the clients, and you can see the photographer is trying to listen, and he's trying to be like, "Hey, what's going on?"
Yeah.
Like he's like kind of like confused and trying to understand the situation, and I totally agree. Like I feel bad for him because it's not a great circumstance to be in for someone to try and like take over your shoot.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. No matter, but people can say, "Oh, it was just a fun little TikTok," but this original photographer is, a professional who's being paid, and it was again hand selected by these two clients who are getting married. So they chose him for a reason. They chose him based on his work ethic, based on his style, based on the his previous work, and then you have this random person who wants, just because he has a lot of followers, he thinks like, let me just interrupt this guy's job and
Yeah.
do a little TikTok video, even if it's 1 minute, even if it's 30 seconds. It's still not, it's not a nice thing to do. And this TikToker might be the nicest. Look, we don't know. I don't know him personally. Do you know him, Flannery? We both
No.
don't know him. He might be the nicest guy ever. Maybe he's not aware of the wedding photography community and the work that we do and what we go through on a day-to-day basis with weddings. But it's, hopefully he learns from the response. I don't think he was. Do you think he was anticipating this type of response? Because it was kind of, people were upset.
I don't think he anticipated a negative backlash, and I think that's why there's this second video floating around with more of like an explanation and showing the consent of the wedding photographer.
I gotta see this. Where is this video? I gotta see this.
It's in the link you sent me.
Oh, no way.
There's two videos. There's like a rotating carousel.
Let's
It's
see.
The first video is the explanation one you rotate through, and the second one's the original one. But I do have to say that it is also the responsibility of the wedding photographer and the photographer who set up to shoot to stand up for your own shoot. And he did give consent. You did see in that
True.
video that he agreed, and he said 5 minutes, 5 minutes. So, I think personally we both have our own opinions of how we would handle it. But at the end of the day, this photographer did give consent, and he said you can use these like models, this couple in this instance, this location, everything that I've set up for 5 minutes, go for it. So I think, that's also something to be said, that like you might disagree with it, but at the end of the day, if those people in that scenario have given consent, then, it is what it is. So technically at the end of the day, in that instance for both parties, nothing is amiss, but for us, like I think both of us would have not been appreciative of someone like coming in like that.
You know what, though? I can understand why the original photographer gave consent, but I think deep down he did not want to, but he was put in an awkward situation, very uncomfortable, and he didn't want to be seen maybe by his clients as being difficult or like,
Totally.
you when you're put in that situation, you don't want your, what if his clients really did think it was like a cool little experience, and then he's prohibiting them from doing that. He's like keeping them from this like cute little moment, and you never know. So I think no matter what, it was like, for him, he wasn't winning anything either way.
Yeah.
Whether he agreed to it, whether he didn't agree.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is, I'm sure that this TikToker did not anticipate the reaction that he got, because there were so many upset responses. Like, let's read some of these comments, shall we? Somebody wrote, "This was incredibly disrespectful to the photographer. This couple chose and paid to capture their day. I don't care how amazing you think your photos are. Butting in to take over some precious minutes from someone else was a bad move, and I hope this isn't something you do again. If I were the couple's chosen photographer, I'd be pissed, but you put him and the couple on the spot, so I feel for them in this instant. And also, you know what they wrote? They're like, side note, showing off your portfolio while their photographer just stood there, no, not okay, which that's very interesting because now I'm kind of realizing that he did do that. He was showing his portfolio off, which I think that just like adds salt to the wound. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, look how amazing,
Totally.
look how more amazing I am than this person right here. I don't know.
Yeah. It's like a total,
It's like a flex.
I want to use the bad word.
It's like a flex.
I'll bleep it out. It's a dick move, okay? It really is.
He was like flexing so hard. The photographer's like,
it's not classy. You know, I think, again, like it goes back to this idea. It's like, it's not some random person on the street that you want to show and be like, hey, like, I am a legit photographer. Like, don't worry, like, I'm not just some like rando creep coming up to you. Like, I have a professional portfolio. But yeah, to like flex on another photographer standing right there, it's like,
and he has
yeah,
millions of followers.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's kind of like, oh, you really can't say no to me. I have so many people who follow me and love me. And it's kind of like,
yeah,
it was just not a good situation all around. And I really hope,
yeah,
you know what? I hope other people on TikTok don't see this and think that it's okay, because it's not okay. And let me tell you, if you guys came up to me during my photo shoot and wanted to take pictures and showing off your portfolio in front of my clients, that's the last portfolio you'd have. That's the last picture in your portfolio. You wouldn't be shooting after that. I'm just joking. You quit photography afterwards? No, just joking. No, but I mean, I would definitely say something. I have a big mouth. I'll probably say something. I'll be polite about it. I'll probably do it away from my clients. Because that's also your reputation. You definitely don't want to be seen as a bully or somebody mean or somebody difficult. What would you do? Let's say right now you're doing a photo shoot. Big clients, another photographer, a famous TikToker comes up to you and your clients and wants to do a photo shoot. What do you say?
I think it depends on the client. I think it really depends on like if there's a relationship pre-existing between the clients and that other photographer. But I really do agree. Like, I think it's on the shoulders of the photographer that's butting in, understanding that he is creating or she is creating a unnecessary, awkward, pressured situation that doesn't need to be there in the first place. And I think it just goes back to that there's pretty much no instance where another photographer should take over another professional photographer's shoot in any kind of like capacity. On the one hand, TikTok is giving creatives like a new way to explore content, and photographers and creatives and pretty much actually anyone who's on TikTok is adapting to it. And like, I am a little bored of Instagram where, you know, we're at the point where there are apps where you can schedule your Instagram stories, where it's like, you know, you have your feed, your Instagram stories were supposed to be like this more genuine interaction, the more like real aspect. And now it's like we're to a place where like everything is like scheduled and routine, and like it's been like just kind of like, I don't know, the soul is a little bit gone. And like, I don't know, I feel like on the one hand, I'm a little burnt out from adding another social platform to like my portfolio, where it's like, okay, wait, how many more do we have to add besides Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, all of these things? But on the other hand, like, I'm a little excited because it forces me to think about how I create. And there's this interesting thing happening where the actual structure of the platform shapes the creativity, right? So on TikTok, you have like length requirements, you have like font options, you have like face and voice filters, and like people create trends from those things because they're limited with the tools that they have. And like when looking at Instagram versus TikTok, it's almost like Instagram, they're like, here, we've been giving you like this box of crayons to draw with, but now we're going to give you like a watercolor set. Like, have fun. You're like, oh my God, it's different. Like, so many new things. And like, there's this other layer too, I think, beyond like the tools and making you like change the way you're using your creativity. I think it's also discoverability. On
Yes.
Instagram, you log in and you see the same people every
If I
time. Your
see Kendall
feed is,
Jenner or Kylie Jenner on my explore page, like I don't even follow them.
I
I
know.
don't even follow
But that's the
them.
thing, like, do you go on your explore page? Because I never go on the explore page.
I'll accidentally end up there because I pressed the wrong button, but I'm not on there like,
See,
yeah, let's find some more inspirational
see,
Hawaii pictures of women in bikinis that make me feel worse about myself. You know what I mean?
for real. Like,
Oh my
I'm
God.
like, why do they think I want to see this right now?
But now
Like,
it's like all Animal Crossing stuff.
exactly.
It's like
Same.
literally all like Animal Crossing landscaping, like my explore page, which I love,
I know.
But
So
again,
good.
Kylie Jenner just slips in there every now and
Comes
then
in there.
for
Yep.
some
Yep.
reason. Someone on
I
Instagram is like,
know.
we haven't seen Kylie Jenner in 5 minutes. Let's put her back on the explore page
Yep.
because she doesn't
Oh,
have
God.
enough. How many? She has like 1 million some followers. She doesn't need me to look at this picture.
I know.
My side
But
rant.
like, it's so true that on Instagram, you're kind of consistently fed the same things and the same people. And
Exactly.
like, especially if you don't look actively look for new profiles and people, discoverability is so low versus TikTok. All I do is see new content and I almost never see like the same piece of content or the same person like 2 times in a row. Like it's always new people. And I think there's something to be said about that too, as well, because Instagram at this point, so many people are kind of like established as well. And I think there's this new wave of people that have found an audience through TikTok. Like that guy, like I've never heard of him before.
Yeah.
And he has what, 7 million on TikTok? I've never heard of this guy.
I mean, it's incredible that you can't take away the fact that, you know, he earned those followers and he's put in the work definitely to have the 7 million. I haven't seen his TikToks. I hardly even upload my own TikToks. But
Yeah.
I mean, to have 7 million, you must be doing something right. So give him credit for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But please don't do it again.
And
If you're listening to this,
I know.
don't do that.
But don't do that one concept
Please,
again.
please don't do it. Everything
Just pass
else
on that one.
Everything else is great. What you're doing, but just not
Right?
that. Not that.
Not that one.
Not that one.
That's a hard pass. Yeah. But also I think it speaks to this idea too of, and Jess, you can probably talk about this way more than me, but as a content creator who's in the public eye and creating content consistently, you're not going to have a hit every single time. And you might put out a video or you might say something or you might do something that people don't agree with and that you might get a little backlash for. And I think it comes with the territory of being a public figure and putting content out into the world. And, you know, we can't always be perfect. And sometimes you have to make mistakes to learn from them. But don't you feel that too? Like, you know, it's not always about like putting out perfect content. Sometimes you have to push the boundaries and like maybe overstepping it sometimes, and like learning from that is like the best thing possible.
Oh, definitely. I'm sure he took away from this and he learned maybe he didn't realize because he's not a wedding photographer, or maybe he hasn't shot events. So maybe he doesn't understand like the culture of the photography community, like the working professionals. And again, and I'm sure now he's going to learn from that, and hopefully in the future he'll see somebody working and he'll be like, I'm not gonna approach them and show them my TikTok page. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So hopefully,
Yeah.
But you're right. Listen, nobody's perfect, and I'm sure he did not have any bad intentions. I don't know this photographer. I haven't seen the rest of his TikToks. I don't know his work. I don't know what kind of photography he does. Maybe we can go on and on and on. But at the end of the day, I think we all learned something from this, and you know, this is something that maybe we needed to talk about and address the situation, because it probably happens more often than not. You know, I'm sure this is not like an uncommon thing. I've had people trying to take pictures of remember the 4 photographers in Japan? There were photographers who saw us with a video crew, with our setup and everything. Remember Georgia? She was wearing the kimono, and they wanted shots, and they were taking pictures on. And he had like a Sony, like the nicest Sony camera, and he's like, remember, he's like, I just want to take one, and then he does a burst of like 1,000 photos.
Oh yeah. Totally. But also, I think it's interesting too because in Asia and especially in Japan, there's this camera culture where taking photos is not as taboo as it is in the United States.
Yeah.
And I think that's really interesting too, where when you do travel, there are kind of different sets of rules. I'd be really interested to know what some photographers in other countries around the world think of this. That would be really interesting. So if you're listening and you have an opinion, come find us on Instagram or comment wherever you can and let us know.
Let us know. It's interesting because I agree. TikTok is it allows people to be very creative. It actually, like, you have to almost come up with new concepts to be seen on that platform. Whereas Instagram, oh, hey, I'm going to post a picture, like just a really pretty picture of me with my silky hair. I get like 50,000 likes. Whereas TikTok, you got to actually, like, you got to entertain, you got to, there has to be like a concept behind it. So I do like TikTok, but I don't like the fact that it's making people feel like they have to do these outrageous things in order to be seen and recognized. Like these things where you're, interrupting and getting involved in other people's projects where you shouldn't be.
I think it almost feels like when prank channels started to become popular.
Oh my God.
But it's almost that same feeling of people use the vehicle of content to do things that otherwise would not be acceptable.
Yes.
Where do you think that photographer honestly would have hijacked that other photographer's shoot if he didn't have 7 million followers on TikTok and he wasn't constantly putting these videos out? Like, there's no way he would have just like taken over that shoot. Like, he did it, and he almost had there's this like sense of confidence that creators get, I think, sometimes, of having a large audience behind them, and it makes them feel like this is okay to do because I have all these people backing me up. And I think sometimes it's absolutely true, but I think sometimes, like, you have to remember you're one-on-one with a person in that situation. And oh, my kitty is coming to say hi.
She wants to also comment about TikTok.
Climbing on
She heard the word TikTok. She's like, yes, I got a couple of
Hi.
opinions.
Yeah.
Meow once if you like TikTok. Meow twice if you want us to delete our accounts. We hear nothing.
She walked away.
See, that's a good example of what to do in a situation. You just walk away. Don't even.
You walk away.
You see somebody. She saw us doing the podcast, and then she just walked away.
You're gone.
We can all learn something from
You're
your
better
cat.
than all of us, Bubs. Love you. She's the best. Oh my God.
You know what? You made a really good point. Because let's say he didn't have 7 million followers. You think he's going to be approaching that photographer? And probably not.
Well, also, like, what would be the point of taking over someone else's shoot, right? It's like, if you don't have content behind that, then it's becomes meaningless. It just becomes a weird act,
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important distinction.
I want to know who the wedding photographer is in all of this. I mean, props to him.
Give him a shout out.
We'd love to give him a shout out.
We'll tag him, or
we would love to have him on here and talk to him.
Yeah.
And get his side of the story if he wants
absolutely.
to share it. And again, it just comes to the fact that sometimes, the professionals are overshadowed by people who just have more followers. And it just goes back to something like this, this wedding photographer, it would just be just another day on the job. And, weddings are very stressful already. It's like a chaotic day. You're on limited time. And people brought up the fact that he took away precious minutes. You don't know how much time you you don't know how much time you have as a photographer to do the couple session. Flannery, sometimes I literally have like 15 minutes to do a couple session because maybe they took too long for the reception or the ceremony, and they have a cocktail hour that they want to be at. And they're, some people aren't going to be like, yeah, I want an hour for couple session. They're like, can you do this in like 10 minutes? And it happens all the time. Again, I've done weddings, like couple sessions in literally like 15, 20 minutes. So
Yeah.
this, even though he said 5 minutes, a lot of people, maybe they say, oh, it's not a lot of time. It is when you're considering this guy maybe had, let's say, 15 minutes to begin with. So now he has like 10
Mm-hmm.
minutes.
True,
And
true.
so,
And also, like when you're shooting, obviously he was in a public space, but sometimes you need a permit. I recognize they were in the square in San
oh,
Francisco, but sometimes you need a permit, but sometimes you go out without one, and it's kind of you shoot until you get told to leave, and those are precious minutes, and
yeah.
I understand that feeling. So yeah, absolutely. But I also think it comes back to like being the wedding photographer and just saying like, no, like we're on a strict timeline, like sorry, but like
Exactly.
it's, not this time.
Let's say this guy approached him. He could have easily said, hey, I'm sorry, we're on a deadline, I have like 10 minutes, I'm sorry, but
Yeah.
best of luck to you. But again, there's shoulda, woulda, coulda. He's being put in an
Mm-hmm.
awkward situation, and I totally understand why he might have given consent where maybe he didn't really want to deep down. And also, I think he did such a good job handling it because he passed it on to his clients, because you do want to make your clients happy. You don't want to take away a nice
Yeah.
opportunity. What if the clients went back later on, the next day and said, oh, like this other famous photographer came up to us, but our original photographer said no, and like we were kind of like bummed, like he had some cute work, like, so you don't want to be
Yeah,
put in that position too, where the clients kind of look at you like you held them back from something, like
for
on their
sure.
wedding day, on their special wedding day. So I think he did a
Agreed.
good job. He was like, I'm going to leave it up to you guys. And he pointed to his clients, and he let his clients make the decision, which I think, I think it is the right thing to do, because they are the clients, and their happiness is first and foremost. I've been in situations like that where I was like, what do you guys want to do? So
Yeah, I love that. I think that's very true. Wise words from
I've done so
Jessica
many
Capesi.
weddings, Flannery. It's people. I think once you shoot
I
a wedding, then
know.
you really learn. Like, don't even like we really give wedding photographers a lot of credit and respect, because it's definitely not an easy job to do. To navigate a very chaotic
Yeah.
day, everybody pulling you every which way to get every certain shot. You can't miss anything. You have to be very observant so
Mm-hmm.
you don't miss any certain shots. I mean, you can hardly even talk to people, because, like, what if you miss, like, a slow dance or, like, a special moment between the bride and groom because you're talking to your friend about Animal Crossing or something? You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, you don't want to be put in that
Totally.
position. So,
Totally.
for all the wedding photographers out there, if you are put in this situation, honestly, what I would say to you guys is to just level with this other photographer. Maybe they're not aware of the work that we do, and the structure of a wedding day and how it works. Just kind of just be like, hey, I'm sorry, I have only a limited amount of time to shoot with them, but we appreciate you offering. And I think the clients will understand. What do you think? Should the clients have the final say, or should it be the photographer?
I think it's more of the client say, but I do think that it's kind of in tandem, if the photographer has a very strong opinion, and I think the clients can also sense that. I think there is something to say about just a general vibe or an energy of the dynamic. And I think people can sense things really well. I think ultimately it is the client's decision, but if the photographer feels very strongly, then I think the clients will sense that and know anyways, especially if the photographer is very vocal about it. So I think it's kind of both together, but ultimately, like if the clients are like, yeah, like I love this TikTok photographer, like I'm obsessed with him, like I want to shoot with him, like I know him, I recognize his work, then like even if the photographer is like, I'd rather you guys not, like at the end of the day, they can make that decision even after that photo shoot is over. They can find that TikTok photographer and shoot with him. So,
Exactly.
everyone has their own right to create with who they want to create with. So, you have to remember that too. So,
Definitely.
yeah,
I kind of think, because sometimes my wedding clients like don't want to tell somebody something, or because they don't want to stir up any like drama or anything.
Drama.
And so what I'll usually tell them is like, hey, like say that Jessica said this has to happen. Like for instance, maybe like the maid of honor wants to come early to do something, like to, I don't know, prepare something for them. But the bride really like wants to just not have anybody there until a certain time. I'll be like, hey, literally just say that Jessica, the photographer, you know, wants everyone here at this time. I'm like, just use me as an excuse. Like, so you're not in the middle of it. So it's nothing, it's not like you personally involved. You can just use me. Because after the wedding is over, like they're not going to know, the maid of honor is not going to care that I didn't allow her to be at the bride's house at a certain time. But if it's the bride, it's more like personal. So for me, I kind of think of it like, if my clients, like maybe they saw this guy's work and they didn't like it, maybe they're kind of like hoping like, okay, Jessica with her big mouth will just be like, no, you can't. So they don't have to like break the bad news to them. So it's kind of like I'm that buffer that kind of protects them in a way. So, but I kind of like suss out the situation and see how my clients react to certain things and just go from there. Because, you know, a lot of my clients are my friends. And, you know, fun fact, honestly, a lot of them become like really close friends of mine, either through their engagement shoots or their wedding shoots. So it's like I'm kind of like talking to my friends first and foremost. So I kind of sense the vibe and I know like, okay, like I'll let this pass, or hey, I need to step in and say, no, this can't happen because of my clients, because my clients don't like this. So it's just kind of feeling out the situation. Honestly, at the end of the day, Flannery, I'm sure we can just both agree that no matter what, this photographer was not, again, it was like a lose-lose for this photographer, but he was very professional. And I mean, God bless him for like, just, I'm sure he deals with this kind of stuff like daily, not necessarily people like interrupting his shoots, but maybe like other things that really make wedding photography, you know, sometimes difficult, but it's also very fun. So, all right. So now that we've seen the video, let's take a look at the pictures. So Flannery, what are your thoughts? He posted them on Instagram. He posted about 3 of them.
So I'm just going to describe them really quickly. So there's 3 images. They're all portraits of the couple. Majority, 2 of them are kind of from like the chest up, and there's one that's kind of like from the feet up. And I think overall the composition is fairly basic. Like you can tell it's very kind of like street style, where he just kind of like shot them quickly.
Yeah.
And it's very basic with the posing. And just kind of like infusing my personal creative opinion. One, disclaimer, art is art, and I think any piece of art is valid, and I think it's amazing that he like did anything and put out any pieces of content. But my personal opinion on these is there is very heavy like teal and orange light bokeh that's been applied over it, and personally I think it looks like kind of like a cheap iPhone app. It's absolutely not my style, so I don't connect with it. Doesn't mean it's bad, doesn't mean it's wrong. A lot of people obviously love it and love this style, and I think that's great if you do enjoy it. Personally, I just think it looks kind of like an amateur photographer. Like I remember when I was first starting to edit photos, I kind of like pushed things to the max, and I think people see that pendulum a lot. Like when you first figure out what like a Lightroom preset is, you put it to like the max, and then 100%. You like put 3 presets on top of each other. Like you're just so excited, and I think that's kind of what I see in his photos.
You know, and let me tell you something. I've done so many couple sessions with bride and grooms, so I have my own style when it comes to photography. I'm looking at this purely as a wedding photographer right now. I can't see a bride looking at these pictures and like wanting to like put this up in her house. I don't know. And this is purely from my experience as a wedding photographer. For instance, and let me tell you why. And to your point, for the 2 minutes that he had, these are great pictures. The compositions are great. He did a great job, and we don't know how many other pictures he took, but I mean, they're clean images, they're sharp, they're in focus. So that's more than I could do, right? No, but for instance, let me tell you why. Because like this first portrait on his Instagram, the close-up when they're both looking at each other, he has his arm around her waist. There's like this blue color bubble, I'll call it, kind of on her dress, makes her dress look blue. You know, the brides really love their white dresses. You want to make sure that that's the one thing that really stands out. They probably spent so much time and money picking out their dresses, they want it to show in the picture. A lot of my brides literally want so many wedding dress shots. I mean, just think about how special is your wedding dress. And then he's like adding a color bubble over it, kind of like turning it blue and like kind of discoloring it. And then he's also adding, again, those light flares on her hair, and then this really bright blue flare right behind the groom's head. Again, let me tell you something. It probably did very well, you know, on this type of style is very prevalent now on Instagram and TikTok, the bright, colorful stuff. But for a lot of wedding clients, I don't know that they would like this style. And that's, again, it just comes from my experience as a wedding photographer, seeing what my clients like and seeing what is popular in the culture of the wedding photographer. The most popular, sought after wedding photographers today, their style is very much different. It doesn't mean that he's a terrible photographer or that, you know, his editing is terrible. It's just not really our style. And then I'm looking at like the portrait actually is very cute of them. This close up of them, they're very nicely composed. One little critique, she has like a piece of hair that's kind of like flying past. I would have probably fixed that, but the guy had like a couple minutes. I would probably have fixed the groom's tie. Let's see. I mean, I don't know. I would like to know what the group and the bride think of these pictures compared to the pictures that their wedding photographer gave them. I think it would be awkward for me as a wedding photographer if my clients received wedding pictures from somebody other than me. It would make me feel like I wasn't a good enough photographer and that I didn't do a good job and maybe they didn't like my pic. Like if these clients posted, let's say these clients posted his pictures instead of the original wedding photographer, that would probably like crush me inside. I feel like, okay, I mean, they posted his, you know what I mean? Just, it's not a good feeling. It's just not a good feeling. So I hope that the original photographer didn't have to go through that. Again, I would really be interested in hearing like his experience and what he was thinking during this situation.
Yeah.
But that's our critique of the images, you know. By the way, it says who the photographer was. Bill Payne. Can we give a shout out to him? Bill Payne Photo. Everybody check him out on Instagram. He has some beautiful images of the couple that we're talking about. Somebody wrote a comment. Hey, Bill, your photos are 1,000 times better than the disrespectful person. Like,
oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. But, you know, we really should be giving credit to the original photographer. And again, his name is Bill Payne. Check him out. Bill, if you're listening, we would love to have you on this podcast and just have a little chat with you.
Just looking at his images, he has such a distinct style that is clearly his. And I think this just goes back to that idea of when you as a client, whether it's a wedding photographer or any type of photographer that you're hiring them for the work that they produce and their style. And, you know, it's like Bill has his own unique style and the couple wanted that. And these photos look great. And I'm sure the couple is very happy with them. And I'm really happy for the couple too. Also, congrats to the couple for getting married.
Congratulations.
Like, amazing. Congrats on that. But yeah, Bill, like Jess said, if you hear this, come on the podcast. We'd love to talk to you.
I'm looking through your portfolio right now. I mean, you do have a very distinct style. I think you have some lovely work and, you know, we want to just give you some credit for staying gracious and professional through something like that. So, and we wish you the absolute best and the most success in your business. And again, just good job, because that's not easy to deal with. All right, guys, so that wraps up today's episode of a TikTok star crashing a wedding photographer's photo shoot. We just want to say, please don't send any hate to anybody. I mean, even though low-key, there's only one person that you probably be mad at in this entire situation. But again, he probably learned from it and he's grown from it, and that's all we could really ask for in this situation. So we'd love to thank you guys for listening, and let us know if you guys want us to talk about anything else, if you guys have any ideas.
Yeah, you can find us on Instagram or YouTube at Light Muse Podcast, and we'll see you in the next episode.
See you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.